जय जय सुरनायक जन सुखदायक प्रणत पाल भगवंता गोद्विज हितकारी जय असुरारी सिंधु सुता प्रिय कंता पालन सुर धरनी अद्भुत करनी मरम न जानई कोई जो सहज कृपाला दीन दयाला करऊ अनुग्रह सोई करऊ अनुग्रह सोई जय जय अविनाशी सब घटवासी व्यापक परमानंदा अभिगत गोतीतम चरित पुनीतम माया रहित मुकुंदा जेहि लागी बिरागी अति अनुरागी विगत मोह मुनि वृंदा निशिबासर ध्यावहि गुण गण गावहि जयति सच्चिदानंदा जयति सच्चिदानंदा जेहि सृष्टि उपाई त्रिविध बनाई संग सहाय न दूजा सो करऊ अघारी चिंता हमारी जानिय भगति न पूजा जो भव भय भंजन मुनि मन रंजन गंजन विपति बरूथा मन बच क्रम बानी छाड़ी सयानी सरन सकल सुर जूथा सरन सकल सुर जूथा सारद श्रुति शेषा ऋषय अशेषा जा कहूँ कोई न जाना जेहि दीन पियारे भेद पुकारे द्रवौ सो श्री भगवाना भव बारिधि मंदर सब विधि सुंदर गुण मंदिर सुख पुंजा मुनि सिद्ध सकल सुर परम भयातुर नमत नाथ पद कंजा नमत नाथ पद कंजा जय जय अविनाशी सब घटवासी व्यापक परमानंदा अभिगत गोतीतम चरित पुनीतम माया रहित मुकुंदा जेहि लागी बिरागी अति अनुरागी विगत मोह मुनि वृंदा निशिबासर ध्यावहि गुण गण गावहि जयति सच्चिदानंदा जयति सच्चिदानंदा।
How should we start? Relationship satsang we had, no? The other day. Relationship satsang is going on for many children, no? Listen, either getting in or getting out. Actually, the main point is very simple, that God's presence, God's light, is that which creates life, is the light of life. It is not inherently opposed to anything that is appearing in our life, but when we take the position of creatorship, of doership, of ownership, of having our way with things instead of allowing it to be guided by God's will, that is the only problem. And I've given some simple examples, some simple advice on this, which is that if you find yourself rushing, slow down. First, slow down. When you don't want to slow down, slow down. Because your mind is rushing you. And in rushing, what happens is mostly we lose touch with our inner intuitive powers, God's light shining through, and we become egoic, strong, must have our way. When we get into that kind of mode, then that becomes a struggle. And for those in spirituality, then it becomes as if we have divided ourselves into two. You see? There's one aspect of us who comes to satsang, who says, all I want is God. You see? There's another aspect of us outside satsang, which says, all I want is this relationship. You see? And then, because our life is the final true prayer, we may pray as if when we pray, then we dial a hotline to God, and only that part of our life is available to Him. We may act that way, but God knows every breath that we take, every intention that we have. So our life in that way then is the true prayer. And if our life is then divided in this way, then our prayer is also half-half, is divided. And does that mean that we must not then pray to God and come into His holy presence in our heart? No, not at all, it doesn't. But what I'm saying is that from there, inward facing, antarmukhi, you can allow all these things to unfold in your life. You see? But you have to be honest to yourself about this with integrity. Because when we are in the haze of wanting, desire, then we attribute everything to God's will and coming from our heart, then we are actually rushing from our mind. So we have to be careful of that. But I got reminded today that most of our brothers and sisters in the world have created a conceptual understanding of God and created their own framework for how they are right about it. And then to be open to any other voice which seems contrary to that mental framework can seem very difficult. It seems very, very difficult. So sometimes we forget like that because we meet in satsang and because everyone comes seeking the truth, because really there's no marketing, there's no invitation for anyone to come to satsang. It is just when you hear that calling in your heart, for some reason you end up here. And sometimes as a sangha we get used to an environment where it's a given that everyone's wanting to deepen in God's light, in God's presence. So sometimes when you engage with the seeming outer world on spiritual topics, then you realize that it's a very different world actually. It's a very, very different world. And in that way, we must always keep in touch somehow with that outside seeming world, so that we recognize more deeply what ails the human condition. So, I feel like if you were to say, I don't know who God is or what God is, that would actually be better than concluding just conceptually that I know God is like this and can be found like this. So, but that also requires grace. So may God's grace bless everyone to look deeper within themselves, where His presence, His Atma lives. And may they be drawn to this holy calling which all of us have actually, but somewhere we forget. In the pulls and pushes of life, we end up forgetting about this that is calling us within. So in all our lives, all our brothers and sisters, all of us are dealing with both these force fields. The very pushy force field of egotism, which mixed with the world appearance makes what we call Maya, and the patient, loving force field, the voice which is calling you within to a deeper exploration of who you are and the presence of the Atma within. Now, so the mind has all the answers. It provides all the answers, especially if you've lived a few years. So, but that which keeps us caught up in Maya and prevents us from undertaking this deep exploration to come to Atma Darshan, that must be recognized as getting in the way of your true fulfillment of the purpose of our life. We cannot be God's temple without first surrendering our egotism, wanting really to come to self-discovery, self-recognition, or another way to say the same thing is to come to God's presence, God's light. So most of our brothers and sisters may say, but yes, I do believe in God. So, but to take the next step, to go from belief to actual insight, to actual recognition, darshan, jnana, that is very important. And the cost of that, very few are willing to pay. The cost of that is what? It's not a worldly cost. There is no VIP line to God. You cannot get VIP darshan to God, no matter how much, whatever worldly things you may do. What is the cost then? Of our pride, of our egotism, because the lane is very narrow. Rahima gali hai sakri, meaning that the lane is very narrow. If there is me, there cannot be God. If there is God, there cannot be me. So that is a lifelong project, and it's very difficult. Chanta was saying last. What kind of satsang do we have? You go to other places, everyone says, yes, yes, you come, you do this, you'll be very happy, you'll be fine, all will be sorted. See, and come to Satsang here, you hear it's so difficult, it's a lifelong project. Very few actually want it. From those who actually want it, very few may actually have that faith to fully dive in. But maybe it is just because I am so foolish that it is and was so difficult here to not get involved in pride and to take God to be the living presence, the living reality. So how do we go from a mere belief that yes, I believe in God to a true insight? The absence of focus on the me is the first step. And, to recognize how do we focus on this me. You're just sitting here. No? Try to focus on me, on the me, the ego, yourself. How would you do it? In natural perception, can you? Yes, it's fine. Then what happens? Ta-dang, 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 ta-dang. Like the Pink Panther, this thought comes into our mind. It says, I think, or I am right about it. Or how could he have said that to me? How could she have done this to me? And what is that thought attempt to capture? What is it attempting to capture? It's trying to capture some truth from this world into a conceptual idea. Isn't it? It's trying to offer us some truth. Let's put it simply like that. That this is a proposal, this is a notion, there is truth in that. And all of us have the power to give it truth value or not. That is what is called belief. Now, if it was just like that, it would be fine. But the minute you buy into a concept posing as if it is the truth, you also buy into a limited notion of yourself as this body mind, as this identity, as this person. Before that, everything was just merely appearing in front of you. Even this body is just merely appearing in front of you. Even your thoughts, your memories, imagination, all of that is just merely appearing in front of you. So, like Anand Mahima said, that Maya is Main Aya. You see, it's not like many feel like it's just the appearance of this world is Maya. Just in the mere appearance of this world, it just is Leela is appearing. It is not yet become Maya for us. The waking state is appearing. Everything is like this. No perception, no sensation by itself has any power to get us embroiled in Maya.
So what is the strong Maya?
Yeah. Strong Maya is Donkey Kong level 2. Appearances everywhere, emotions, you see everything. In every level of our existence, it may seem like something is buzzing, you see, and then the mind comes and says, this is what it is. If only I had this. You see, if only this was true. If I had this much money, I'd be happy. If only that relationship would work out, I'd be happy. If only my body was healthier, I'd be happy. If only I understood the meaning of life, I'd be happy. So all of these constructs then get us trapped into Maya. But just as pure perception, not there. You see? But I've experimented and explored and really dive deep into this contemplation as to what is the best mechanism, how do I guide everyone, what are the tools available to remain empty of this Maya, to be Maya Rahit. You see? is important so that we can come to a true insight of the Atma. You cannot be embroiled in Maya and come to Atma at the same time. You cannot be me, Maya, and God at the same time. So, and in my contemplations, I have found that inquiry, prayer, remaining empty in whatever way, are very straightforward mechanisms. They seem very difficult to the mind. But what is actually being asked of us? What is actually being asked of us? What is being asked of us is that whatever comes, remember God. In prayer, in the bhakti way, whatever comes, don't forget God. And isn't it natural for us to not forget the ones that we love? It's very natural. It shouldn't be difficult. And we've already claimed that our life is for God. We love God so much. We love the truth so much. So this aspect of remaining inward facing, in smaran, nam smaran, or even just smaran wordlessly, is very, very natural in the human condition, actually, at the core of it. Because our heart itself loves to pray, our Atma within loves to pray. So, it's very natural, and all of us experience that naturalness. Most of you in this room have concluded on many occasions that you cannot go back to your old ways, isn't it? On many, many occasions you've concluded that it's impossible now to go back to the old ways of being egoic and proud and full of me, instead of full of God. And yet, when Maya comes in this play, something comes, somebody says something. You could be checking in for your flight and somebody says to you, no, something is wrong with your ticket. And in that moment, God is forgotten. How could you say, the auto guy says, give me 50 rupees more. In that moment, God could be forgotten. You see? So, Maya doesn't always let some Apsara is going to come in front of you and that you're going to be like Vishwamitra and Menka will have to come. For most of us, Menka doesn't have to come. Just auto rickshaw is enough to get. So this is how Maya works. And then in that moment, to save that 20 rupees, 50 rupees, we forget God, and it becomes more about the me and not, and we take justice upon ourselves, we take what is right upon ourselves, we take what needs to happen next upon ourselves. All that is supposed to be left to God, we take on to ourselves. Leave justice to God, leave it to God's will, all of these things. And then the mind plays the reverse trick. It says, if you live like that, then you will just be a doormat. You see, everybody will just walk over you. No, but I didn't say that. That is because we operate in the two categories of the mind. One is the worldly category and the other is the mind category of spirituality. You see? Which says that, oh, but if you're not like this, then the opposite must be true spiritually. You see? That means you must let every auto rickshaw guy take 50 rupees extra from you. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that even in these times, don't forget God. Allow Him to guide you, allow Him to move you. And for most of us, that seems like a very absurd sort of possibility, because we don't realize that God is actually a living presence. Did something happen to you? Okay. Greatest teacher, best. It's fine. That's how Maya works. Thank you. It's good. So, how many of us take this to be a... We can reduce it. How many of us take it to be a living possibility that in the midst of the argument with the person at the check-in counter or the last auto rickshaw you took, that you can still not rush and wait for God to guide you and God to move you? Okay? Is it absurd? It's actually not. It's the most natural. In every situation, it's the most natural. But our worldly conditioning, our Mayavi conditioning has convinced us that that is not the way to be. You see? So they will say, but even Krishna told Arjun to fight. Correct? A great Krishna told Arjun to fight. What is Krishna telling you? That is the question. That is your dharma. That at that moment, Krishna was telling Arjuna what his dharma was. What is Krishna telling you now? What is God telling you now? See? That is what we need to understand. And to take on the bow and arrow without waiting for God's guidance is to go with my will instead of God's. And this can seem very difficult initially because for most of us God has only been a concept so far, and maybe just a blanket idea that everything is God's will, which it is. And yet our job is to find Him and therefore discover His will. Both are true. So is God a living presence that you can actually meet? What is that place where you have to go to meet Him? You have to go inwards. Inwards into what? We cannot answer, because it's definitely not inwards into the body. The body, organs, flesh, blood. But we have the capacity to go inwards, which is not the body. No? All of us say, when I go within, then I feel better, I feel peaceful, I feel centered. But that within is a holy place. Is not to be seen in an X-ray machine or MRI. That you can find for yourself when you go within. So when you pray, it naturally, the words are activated by God's name, so you're drawn within into the call from your heart. Same thing happens when you inquire. Many people mistake this about the inquiry. They feel like, if I was to calculate the value of the speed of light or of momentum or something, I just have to look at all the variables and keep asking myself the right questions, and then, you see, I will be able to crack that, you see, through the brute force of my intellect. But the inquiry into who am I is very different. You ask yourself, who am I, very sincerely, but you cannot answer that question ever for yourself. Only God has that capacity to give us the answer. No matter how perfect textbook our practice may be, we may have memorized everything Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi ever said, and just doing it scientifically with precision. No thought escapes us. We grab it and say, who witnesses that? Every thought. And yet the insight that I am that comes only by grace. So we have to pay full tuition, and yet we are not entitled. What is tuition? Full dedication, full surrender to God. Then what happened? That which seemed like a dark, empty place starts to light up. not with necessarily a perceivable light. That may be a byproduct, an outpouring. Some of you may find some perceivable light within your heart, or love, peace, joy. All these things are bound to come. But you recognize there that it is an outpouring, isn't it? It is a byproduct. It is not the source in itself. All of us recognize that if you are sitting and praying or really inquiring truly, if it is His grace, then this kind of outpouring will come from time to time. That you feel so much joy, so much peace, so much love. All this can come. But you recognize that something deeper is the source of all of this. This is the unperceivable light of the Atma within. So we've let go of the false me. We're following the method which our teacher has told us, and we are visiting our holy sanctum sanctorum within, where the Atma resides. Now, it's very strange to say something like unperceivable light. What? Unperceivable and light. How can it be? Isn't it? So, it's almost like a Zen koan. How can it be unperceivable and light? And it can feel like I was with you till that point. There you lost me, because what is that? So that is an introduction to intuitive insight. That which is beyond perception, that which is beyond conceptualization and thinking, that intuitive insight, which is the gift of the Atma, when we take on the discipleship of the Atma within, when we become a disciple of the Holy Spirit, the Sadguru, the Vaheguru, whichever term you want to use, when we offer ourselves up in surrender to God, then intuitively we start coming to deeper realms of recognition. Now, I'm going to push everyone a bit and say that if your attempt is not to come to Atma Darshan, which is because the promise is that you can find God. You can find God. And after that, if your attempt is not to come to Atma Darshan, which is basically God's presence within yourself, then you're leading a zombie life. This will be another anti-marketing thing to say. Then I'll go as far as to say that we've not lived at all. We've taken this dream to be the only reality, and we will be born into this zombie life and we will die. Everything comes and everything goes, and all will be forgotten, no matter what great things we did here. But if you find God, then you have a chance at eternal life. What does that mean? It means that otherwise we are not living at all. When we come to the giver of life, the creator of life, that is the point at which we can say that this is true life. So let me put it another way. If I said to all of you, just imagine the one that you admire the most in the world. It can be a great scientist, it can be a movie star, it can be whatever you want. Great humanitarian, social worker, whatever you want. And somebody said to you that you can come into a mentorship or tutelage of that one, the greatest one in your eyes. You can learn whatever you want from that one. He is available and willing to teach you. To what length will you go for this discipleship, for this tutelage? And it doesn't have to be someone in the body. Suppose you admire Gandhi, Gandhiji, and someone came and told you that Gandhiji can actually teach you the right way of life, and all you have to do is this. And you really loved him, no? All your life, suppose you really loved him. Then at what point will you say, no, I can't do this, I can't go beyond this? If there's true love and admiration and devotion, you will not set a boundary for yourself. If you have to fly tomorrow to Timbuktu, you will fly. And I'm not talking about external things, but just to illustrate. So you will, somebody I know that many children love these movie stars. So if they had a chance that you can meet this one, they'll do anything. They'll fly across the world. They will not sleep. They'll be jet lagged. They will fly economy. They'll do whatever to meet their icon. And here in Satsang, you're hearing that God can be found within yourself, and mostly not in our mental or verbal reaction, but in our action. It's like, okay, you'll see, देखेंगे. Or skepticism, easier said than done, it can't happen for me, easy for him to talk. All of these things are very natural as reactions when you hear something like this. But I want to be clear, because I want to be clear with God about this, that I want to live this life only serving Him. You see? So I want to be clear with all of you, that I'm making it loud and clear to all of you that His presence as the Holy Atma within yourself is a reality, and you can find it and you can live in its light. Yeah? That is my only real job. Because that is the true Sadguru actually. This one is just an instrument of that. So that living presence, that living reality of God can be found in the form of the Atma within. And the only purpose, not just the main one, but the only real purpose of life is to come to that discovery and then remain in that holy presence of God. From there everything can unfold. And I realize that this is very contra to everything we hear in the world, even in the rara spirituality which is infected our world today, which is more about God for me, self-fulfilling, smallest self-fulfilling rather than self-sacrificing spirituality. So this tutelage, this discipleship, you must come to. I can prod you, provoke you, plead with you, I can do whatever to get you to that point of recognizing that all other things in life are thermocol, just vapor. So everybody in India is able to say, तू क्या लेके आया था, क्या लेके जाएगा, I mean, what did you come with, what will you go with, and quote many things from the Gita, holy scriptures, but what are we doing about it? Yes, I didn't come with anything, I will go with nothing as well, but if this invitation is there that you can find the true meaning of life, which is to find God's reality in your heart, what is that option 2 which is more attractive? And I'm not saying that this has to be done at the cost of any other things that are part of your life, your family, your job, your relationships. It's not at the cost of that. But it is at the cost of one thing, which is your ego. Because your family and everybody around you are very happy without your ego. So don't fool yourself that you're doing it because you have responsibilities and things like that. It is we that love our pride. It is we that love our ego, that want to do things our way instead of God's way. So, all of you heard this many times from me, but if you were to ask most in the world, would you prefer a God-dictated life or a God-assisted one? What do you feel they'll say? God-assisted, isn't it? Like, God is available to me as a genie. Whenever I call him, he helps me out and it's all sorted. But a God-dictated life seems scary to all of us. And that is why I love the way, and I mention it in every satsang, that Nanak Ji's statement that Hukum Rajai Chalna Nanak Likhyana, it's called Hukum for a reason. It's not a request. It's not an invitation even. It is a command. God's will is actually a command. And that seems very scary to our ego. Because for us, we don't realize that we are going to be servants either way. We are either going to be in servitude to our mind or we are going to be in servitude to God. And we don't realize that when the sages told us to become bhaktas, to have this deep love and servitude to God in our hearts, they were pointing us to a deep freedom. Because in servitude to God is our freedom. Again, the mind cannot understand this. How can servitude be freedom? That you have to taste for yourself. But at least we can recognize that when we are operating in the push-pull of the mind, the proddings of the mind alone, then at least being in satsang for some time, as most of you have, you must be able to see at least that this is a prison. It is a mental oppression that we call my way. It is the mind's way. You're not listening to the deeper calling which is coming from the Atma within. Because we feel like without the mind, I don't know anything. I'll be a waste. I'll be a waste. But the bad news is without coming to God, we are waste. We're just food. It's just food. All this is made up of food. But besides food, nobody likes hearing that. No, did anybody enjoy hearing that you're just food? No, nobody likes hearing that because somewhere you know that there is more to you than that. And that is what that prodding is for. Somewhere you recognize that it's not just about this between birth and death for you. That's why even regular people, not in satsang, civilians, will say that we'll wish another one, may this loved one who has passed, may they rest in peace. Because if they only considered themselves to be a body or others to be body, then there's nobody left to wish once death has come. Who are they saying rest in peace to? But the idea of finiteness somewhere in us does not really appeal. Like if we hear that this is going to be your end, you feel like, I feel I'll witness even that. Something is there, intuitively we have a sense of it, which doesn't accept the fact of an end. There is an eternal aspect to yourself. Where does that come from? What is the origin of that? You can explore these things. Because if it wasn't there, then nobody would ever contemplate even the idea of infinity. We have the ability to fathom that somewhere, although to the mind it makes no sense. To the mind only time makes sense. So, the only escape for those who are truly contemplating life, truly contemplating life, if you try to do it godlessly, and I've tried in the past when I was an atheist, I really tried, and it only gets you into this nihilism. It's all meaningless, pointless, nothing is ever anything. But when you come to His holy light, His holy presence in your heart, you realize that life is deeply meaningful. Just that your intellect is too small to grab it. Nothing more is coming to say. I'll just continue it here. So, and that is an indication of human pride. That if we don't like hearing that our intellect is too small to understand the meaning of life. And I'm not saying that you can't understand the meaning of life, I'm just saying your intellect can't. There is something deeper within yourself where you fathom these things, but these things that you recognize may be ineffable, so you don't have the words to construct, to convey the notion of that. And this pride is unique to humans because we don't expect any other creature to understand the meaning of life. Like somebody says, oh, I was sitting with my pet this morning and he was telling me the meaning of life. That sounds absurd. I was sitting with some plants and some birds and they were talking about the meaning of life. We don't expect that of any other creature. But as humans, we have this pride about us. We can understand everything, and if we don't understand, it's not so. We have this problem that whatever we are trapped in our sense making and whatever doesn't make sense for us, then we feel like it cannot be true. You see? And yet at the same time, when all this intellectual battle is happening, something is constantly calling you from deep within yourself. That longing, that call of the truth, that call of love, that call of a different way of life, a moving away from head to heart, that calling is for everyone. And it would be very easy if what Kabirji said was not true, which is that he said, Maya ye mahathagni. Maya hai mahathagni. She is the great con artist, or the greatest con artist. It makes the timeless one believe that it is in time. It makes that which gives light to the universe, make that one believe that it needs to grasp at and steal from a brother and sister, or become higher or lower than another. All these notions of stupidity. Yeah. Makes the light of the universe by its own design. You see, Maya is by the design of God Himself. And our Atma is nothing but the presence of consciousness. So make that one believe by its own design that it is just a bundle of flesh and blood. So all spirituality, all true spirituality is an attempt to snap us out of this dream of personhood, of falsehood, of Maya. The Leela can continue, the play will go on if it has to, if it is God's will. But our suffering, our misidentification, our ajnana, avidya gets cleaned up in the process of devoting ourselves fully to what is inside of us through the process of prayer and inquiry. Then, what is the prescribed diet? Suppose you want to achieve this. You want to come to this, so what is the prescribed? A prayer, inquire, how much? Yeah? 20 minutes a day, 40 minutes, it helps, and that anything is better than zero. Even to remember, just say Ram once a day is better than forgetting God throughout the day. Maybe your whole life will be transformed by that once. Okay? But having said that, as long as you feel like you have the power to do something at all, you must remain in Nirantar Simran, Nirantar Japa, unceasing prayer. And what is prayer? Doesn't have to be, well, mostly it will start off as words, but soon it will become a prayer of your heart, where you recognize these words are true when I say that your Atma itself loves to pray. You're just not in the temple yet, so you can't hear the reverberations. And actually every aspect of your being can become in love with the prayer. What is ajapa japa? You start where it seems like so much effort, so much effort. Even those who claim mastery over their mind, if you ask them to pray for an entire day, you notice that there's so much mental resistance, mental stuff that blocks you from praying, so much comes up. But it's important to transcend all of those things. So you start, it seems for most of us, it will seem like it's a lot of effort. But after some time, you may feel like, oh, but you were just sitting at your computer or you were watching a movie, but you notice that there's a japa going on in your head. Ram, 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 Ram. It's just going on. Seems so effortless, it can seem like such a gift. Especially after those days and weeks and months of trying to make ourselves remember God, chant the name of God. And everything that I'm saying is true for the inquiry as well. That we force ourselves to inquire initially and then we find ourselves organically asking, but who? 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 Sometimes it's not even who am I, it's just who? Who? It's just that looking happens instantaneously. So then what happened? Then you find yourself going deeper within your heart, and for a while it will seem like your prayer is, you're doing the prayer, but it's coming from a deeper place, like your heart is praying. You're praying through your heart as an instrument. So beautiful and pristine. And then as you keep at it, then you realize that that prayer is so deeply seated in your heart now that you just have to turn inwards and the reverberations of the prayer are with you. Your life is more and more now in service to God, only enjoying being in His presence. That is from that place that Kabirji said that Neharwa hamko na hamka na bhave. I don't enjoy my home now. I only want to be in the beloved's house, in my beloved's house. There is that. See? So there are the two homes. The first one is here. The world has conditioned us to treat this as a home. We rely on this for everything. Even the words of Satsang for the first many weeks may just be processed intellectually, saying I agree, I disagree, I agree, I think, all that will happen. So that process of defrosting happens over the first few weeks, and then you start to realize the real project is to move away from there to a deeper place, which is your true home. So he said, "Jahan koi aave na jave," nothing really comes and goes. It's beyond this realm of perception. All perceptions come and go. There, everything is, you may taste it, but it doesn't go. It's always there. It's all there. Nothing ever leaves. And that, in the light of that holy presence, do you recognize the source even of that presence, the Nirguna Brahman, a Nirguna reality as the pure awareness, the pure Sakshi, the pure witnessing of all of this. Cannot be known conceptually. We come to that insight in the light of that presence. So as our prayer deepens in this way, and as our inquiry deepens in this way, by God's grace, we are gifted by this grace of self-realization, God realization. It is not a mechanical process. It is a process which is intuitive, full of faith, love, devotion. Many times it will happen in life that we notice, oh, this boy first satsang, you see, and we're just talking and something, he's like, oh yes, he's here, it's so clear. And it can seem unfair, no? It can seem like, but I have been coming for a decade, this one just came. That's not right. You see, but remember that God knows the curriculum best, what is suited for us. So sometimes He gives us a glimpse, sometimes He shows us what is needed to be shown, but doesn't mean that the cost of discipleship doesn't have to be paid. The me has to be surrendered, the ego has to be given up. And many times it's a test for us because it is very easy to become proud of spiritual insight. Who is it? Somebody said, no? What is the difference between Ram and Ravan? One had the knowledge of pride and the other had the pride of knowledge. So that in a nutshell is what satsang is about. That is in a nutshell what we are doing here. This is why we gather, to fulfill what seems very, very apparent to me as the highest possibility in the human condition, which is to come to a realization of God within ourselves in the form of the Atma. But even after the recognition, our work goes on. That's why great sages constantly needed to remain with God, because great temptations came also from Maya for the greatest sages as well. Like Narad himself, our story, we almost have started saying, oh Narad, don't be Narad, don't do it's like Narad. But actually he was a Maharishi, one of the greatest devotees of Narayan, Lord himself. But the story is illustrative because it shows us about what is possible in our life. And remember that in our life, we are not at Narad level where some very beautiful Apsara has to come or something like that. Like I was saying, the smallest insult is enough. The smallest insult is enough. You're talking to someone and they say, shut up, you don't know who you're talking to, or you're nobody, get lost. That is enough to forget God. Where am I saying all this from? From my experience. I do all these stupid things. Yeah. So these it's important also that these things happen because they keep you grounded. No? Otherwise, we keep flying. So, humility, faith, courage, patience, gratitude, all that he teaches us. He teaches us. We don't know how to learn all these things. But if we turn inwards, then he can teach us. If we already think we know, if we are just going by what the outer is showing us, then we don't come into that beginner mode at all. You see, to become a disciple of the Atma, we have to come into the beginner mind. Can't go there and say, I know this, what do you think? This is what I've learned in my life. What do you feel about it? And I'll know that you are truly the Atma if you can confirm what I've learned. This is our mind. This is the Ravan mind that we have. So we have to snap out of all of this pride and return to the innocence of a beginner every day. Every day. Start your day by coming to God's presence. Talk to Him. If something is bothering you, keeping you away from His life, just share that with Him. As the beloved, as a father, as your best friend, doesn't matter what construct you put at it, on it. Bring everything to Him. Offer everything to Him. Accept everything as if from Him. See? Just give her some water. She'll get dehydrated. And so much crying. That reminds me to have some more.
It's a fish on top.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's why the mind wants to be the student, but the mind only have to turn a deaf ear to be a student. All the questions, everything it wants to learn, that only I have to just ignore. Student itself, I'm not getting. It's very absurd.
It's very absurd. I agree with you fully. But somewhere something rings true, which keeps bringing you to Satsang, isn't it, for so many years? What is that? Where is that place within you where that which is beyond the linear, isn't it? Like you said, no, it's very beautiful what you said, that how is it that if I was just a material thing, how is it that I'm finding joy in something that I can't explain? It is immaterial for sure. The material cannot get joy from that which is immaterial or beyond material. Where you know that? Where do you taste that joy, that peace, that fulfillment, that contentment, that quietness for a second, the stillness for a moment? Where is that felt? Huh? It's an aspect of us which we have been taught to forget.
That is what you're saying, no? To turn a deaf ear to this mind wants to learn.
Yes, turn a deaf ear to that and don't prejudge the rest of it. Okay? Don't prejudge the rest of it, because then if you prejudge the rest of it, it will seem like, oh, only the mind can speak in words. That God only guides us wordlessly. Okay? You will see that it's too pristine to really put into words. But there's this deeper aspect to your existence, which is in the presence of the Atma within. So, from this beautiful session I was hearing online a few months back, I shared with all of you also that they said that even in the world, you see, if we are just sitting with our partner, but we are just on our phone, and she or he is trying to talk to us, and we are not paying any attention, and then we say, why don't you? The one says, why aren't you paying any attention or listening to what I'm saying? And you say, but I'm here, no? I'm here. What else do you want? You are here, like you are present, but you're not present actually. You see? So, to build a relationship with God, we have to start by being present to His presence. Just like we need to be in a worldly relationship. Are we alive to His presence? And this can be exceptionally difficult. Sorry, but exceptionally difficult because it is asked of us to be present first, to be inward facing first, even before His presence is palpable to us. You see? So, for a long time, it can feel like we have made ourselves available, but we don't know what is going to be the fulfillment of this. Am I going to actually come to my Atma? Is He going to reveal Himself? Is God going to reveal Himself in whichever way? And then it's even more troublesome because in Satsang He says it's going to be unperceivable yet found. It's all very difficult for the mind. So it requires a lot of faith, and it really helps if you run out of moves. If you run out of moves anyway, then you don't need that much faith. What else can I do anyway? Isn't it? So both are fine, either are fine. So, but it's very rare for us to run out of moves really. So to come to that which is beyond perception and beyond thinking, empty of reliance of grasping onto the me, using whatever method of prayer or inquiry that you resonate with, that has been offered by your teacher, and to remain like that unceasingly as much as we can. The effort is to be unceasing. For none of us will it actually be, at least for this one, it is not unceasing. But the intent is unceasing. Because Maya still plays its game every day. So that is the spiritual project in some sense. And I know every day I say that is the spiritual project for completely different things possibly, but in essence this is what it is, expressed in maybe different ways. But across the board, no matter what kind of satsang you're in, what kind of spirituality you're in, it is to let go of the false me, to turn inwards and to inquire or to pray for His grace to bless us with true insight.
Also, like you were saying, you have made it more clear for me when you keep saying the God.
It is the God, yes.
You just take God as a God. No, it's the God.
The one.
The King of the universe, the Lord of multiverses.
Yes.
The Lord of all creation of all senses and all movement.
And to be found as a living presence within ourselves, as an Atma, as the Atma. That Nirguna Brahman, you see, but realized as Saguna Nirguna Eko Govindure. Change that. Both Saguna and Nirguna, Govinda. God, Govinda, Allah, whatever word we want to use. Yes. Hi.
Was just reflecting, Father, on pride and how people resist God. I have resisted in the past, and so on and so forth. Or what we witnessed today in the conversation that was happening earlier. My observation is that the whole system is rigged to, I don't know whose fault, but it's rigged in the sense that, like I noticed it with my son, right? He's 16 now. The sweet, innocent, curious, like all of us were.
Yeah.
I don't think any one of us were
Yeah.
born with pride or came with some crazy attitude.
Yeah.
Everybody is curious, they're thirsty for knowledge, they want to understand the world. But then the first God that they experience is their parents.
Yeah.
And they literally see us like gods. I saw my parents as gods.
Of course.
And I was very curious, like my son is. And my parents were religious, reasonably spiritual. I mean, they were doing their best. But they created so much confusion
Yeah.
with zero. They were not able to deliver to me an experience of any form of divinity, even though they tried their best.
Yeah.
Again, no fault of theirs.
Yes, of course.
And so, what does one do as a young person trying to make it through this world of confusion? You resist your parents, like what I witnessed today was somebody forcing somebody based on a concept.
Yeah.
And so then this child develops resistance, like
Exactly.
this is somebody who loves me, who I adore, and I'm going to get screwed in the process. So I'm going to build a defense, and that then starts manifesting as pride. And what I wanted to share as what's coming up for me is pride seems to be a nice cover up for fear.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Basically, if you have pride, you are covering up some knowledge that you think you've gained that keeps you secure in this world, and you don't want that to be shaken.
Yeah.
And that's how we just go through this damn life, and we don't meet people like you. And it's almost like an infinite compassion to all the souls that are suffering, not because they are full of pride, they are full of fear. And that's the only coping mechanism they have, is this damn ego that keeps them secure. And then they keep managing this ego here and there, running helter-skelter. And so why I'm saying the system is rigged is there's
It's
one in
like
a
we are
million.
born into this.
We are born into this, and there's 1 in a million or 10 million of you. And so what are we supposed to do? Anyway, I know this is no answer, but that's what was coming up. And I see it in my son, right? Like he's 16, so I'm trying to think, okay, I've got lucky that in the fag end of my life, there is some kind of opening and clearing. I have miles to go. But what can I do with my son?
Yeah.
And he's open, he's curious, he asks hard questions. And I just did some of the insight inquiry that I've learned from you with him to see if he's open to it. And he reported that he got a taste of that. And then now he uses the word beingness, that's the word he likes. And I don't know where it will go, but at least I feel like through you, one soul may have had hope. And I see that with my daughter. I don't know where it will all go.
Of course.
But again, it's 1 in a million, 1 in 10 million of you. So it seems very hopeless.
Yes. Sonali.
Father, what really stayed with me when we were talking one day about the mind is that it is a voice in your head.
Yeah.
And I don't know, since I've heard that, I just became very sharp about noticing the voice and not conversing. at all. I'm not at all trying. That is my intention. But so like it's a moment to moment thing. I'm finding my own practice that I've taken that open and empty to be like this, that I am focused to see when I am starting a conversation at all, anything. You know, I just wanted to share this,
Yes.
and because it's you know, I feel like here something this what I'm saying is nothing so unique, and it's been said in many ways.
Yeah.
But somehow certain things suit us, right?
Yeah.
And for me, in this listening, this really helps me. That you know, it's a voice in your head, and there's no need to listen to it. It's like somebody screaming outside, or you know, some phone call that's not even for you.
Yes.
And what are you so busy listening?
Yeah.
And
It's a very interesting thing. We used to have this thing that whose voice is this? Who is giving you this phone call? And I say, but it's me. So if it's then your voice, then what is it going to tell you that you don't already know? See, why does it need to communicate in these words to you? So it's just like this phone conversation that happens. You pick up and it says, hello, it's me calling. You see, it's just like me. The me is telling me that this is what I need to do, this is what I didn't like, this is what is right or wrong. It's all very absurd. Not just satsang, but our way of life, everything that happened in this life is very absurd. And the only way that I have found, I'm tempted to say, oh, the only way out of this absurdity, but at least I can say that the only way I have found out of this absurdity is to live in God's light and His presence. And whether you call that open and empty, or you call that nirantar japa, or you call it unceasing prayer, or forever inquiry, as long as you're not taking yourself to be a me, and you're more interested in that which is on the inside than the outside, you're fine.
These days I have resistance to going to the temple.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, my mom has this thing like anywhere we go, oh, this is the best temple, that is the best temple. And you take, and it is so crowded. Half the time you're irritated because of that crowd, but that absolute like resistance, like, you know, it's not giving me any kind of, what do you say, like, it doesn't make sense to me, like, you know, when you're praying and you're in that zone, like, I don't know why you have to go to the temple.
Yes.
And it's like a very strong resistance, like, you know, who will go and waste time there, you know, that's how it is.
Yes. Yes. I'm unqualified to talk about that because I used to have that very, very strongly. And even now we don't go to many temples and things like that. But one temple you must not resist going to is now staying in that heart temple, if it takes you to outer temples, it's fine. Okay? And if you notice that you go to a particular temple or some temples where you find yourself easier in your heart temple, then drop that resistance. Okay? But if it all becomes just mental and it's all about things other than God, okay? Because many temples can be about things other than God. So then you just stay in your heart temple. If that guides you to some temple, then that's fine. Okay? But for people in the world who are not being introduced in this way to the holy place in their heart, and if they find some peace and solace and comfort in going to temples, churches, mosques, whichever, Gurudwara, it's all fine. It's all
When we go to Tiru, I don't like going to the temple, but I want to do Girivala. It's like that.
So then try it once. Just try it once. Like force yourself, even if there's resistance. And if it feels like it helps you go deeper in your heart, then notice that it's just mental resistance.
No, whenever that resistance happens and then, I go to the temple, I really feel good.
Okay.
Like I get to the zone. But then until I go there, it's the resistance, not to go there. Why should I go there? Why should I stand for so long? And then after,
So we must look at all of these things then as lifelines. So find at least like 2-3 lifelines for yourself. You see, like some devotional music, coming to satsang, listening to something, whatever lifelines, going to some particular temple. So create these lifelines for yourself, because sometimes Maya will just grab you by the throat so much that you feel like you can't do it by yourself. You see? So like I have this playlist for myself when I feel like the world is so real and things. Then I just remind myself to play that playlist to just come back into God's presence and His light. See, all of us need some lifelines to connect us back to God. And whatever the lifeline is fine. Like there'll be times where you just don't want to do the ETS, you just don't want to pray, you don't want to inquire, you just don't want to do it. And it happens here also. Like some days there's just too much happening, You have a new baby in the house, there's my son just got back from America, all of these things, then this happened, there's one phone call, some emergency is happening in the Sangha. So a lot of these things can come together and you find yourself just in this place where, of course, you went there with your consent, but you find yourself there where you feel disconnected. You see, you feel like, and you don't want to pray. You notice that when you start, it doesn't have momentum. So then you remember, okay, what is my lifeline? Play that bhajan, play this song, listen to something, listen to some satsang, just to bring you back, because we don't want to have too many of those dead moments in our life. Only lived in God's light is a true moment, and yet all of us will have that sense of disconnection. So first is not to be in denial of it. See, because our mind has a great ability to deny. It's like, it's all okay. So it just wants to, because this Mahabharata is about time. So the mind will say, it's okay, tomorrow. It's okay, tomorrow. And that tomorrow will never come. Life will be over before that tomorrow comes. So find whatever helps you. And for each of you it can be different. But you know in your heart what connects you. So just use that. But don't go day after day, week after week sometimes. Just being disconnected and this thing, just do whatever. God knows your intention every moment. So whatever is at your disposal, use it to return to your heart.
Father, what has your experience been with guiding people in self-inquiry from a teenager standpoint? Amongst all the teenagers that you've met, do you feel that since teenagers presumably are more open, less conditioned, it's easier to get them to see that, or you think there's some maturity needed, age? And I know there's no templatized answer, but is there some thing that you felt like if people get early access to this, then maybe we don't go down this rabbit hole?
That's a very good question. In 12 years, has there been an opportunity to take a teenager through self-inquiry Because my teenagers at home never wanted to hear any of that. Mm, I don't recall actually whether I've actually ever led a teenager into self-inquiry. I can see that there can be pros and cons, like the benefit, of course, that they're not that deeply conditioned, they're not that much involved in their way of thinking. You see, the openness may be more. Cons may be just that they want to rush through, they maybe want to rush to say, yes, I got it, because they're so used to school and wanting to do well and things like that. So, but firsthand, I can't actually say that I recall. I do know that some of the younger ones who came to Satsang, they were a lot more open sometimes initially, but they were also in their early 20s or something, I don't recall.
The reason I'm asking that is I have sometimes self-doubt, no? Maybe I'm overdoing it because of whatever I've gone through. So as an example, when he comes home from school, before he starts studies, I sit for meditation, like self-inquiry, and I've invited him to sit if he feels like it. And now it's become like a habit which I've shared with him. It's like, don't start, you come from school, take a little break, don't start your studies till you feel your own presence. And he's begun to sit, and yeah, I have only sample size of one, so
No, this is very nice. It's very, very nice. It can't hurt in any way and can only help by God's grace. Right? So, if I say God, what comes to you? Just feel free and express. Just give it a minute.
So God for me is like, I'm a follower of Vishnuji. Ram and Vishnuji is my favorite, that's what I follow. But I think following Ram give us more of his traits, as in, just be polite, don't harm anyone and all that. So I thought I should be more towards Krishna ji also, so that I can learn the tricks, play smart in corporate world. So yeah.
And if I was to ask you whether you can say that you experience His presence, then what would you say?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Whether you experience His presence.
Presence, no, but I know that he's there. Whenever I'm getting hurt, I know that he's making sure whoever hurts me, this is something which I observe. If somebody hurts me in a bad way or in a negative way, so he ensured that that person will get something in return. मतलब कुछ ना कुछ उनके साथ, it's not like काली मेरी नजर काली नहीं है, but God is there. So
You're leaving justice to God.
yeah. Yes, that's what I believe. So that's where I think that he's there somewhere.
Very good. And this is not an interrogation of any sort. I'm just trying to see what God will unfold in this conversation. And by His grace, if you can find a way for you to just come to a simple way to just control this monkey mind, like you said, which is your intention. It's a very good intention to have, because this mind is the source of all the trouble. So that is the nature of these questions. It is not anything else. So the sages have told us that God, and you say Vishnu ji, Ram ji, Krishna ji, all beautiful expressions of God. They've told us about His presence being available to us in the form of the Atma within. What is your sense about that?
That is right. Absolutely. It is in our scriptures. And I totally agree with that. But because I'm in Kalyug, kuch bhi kar lo, whatever we do, we cannot, I'm not able to, be okay with somebody who is, I cannot consider somebody as a god.
Yes.
Because for me, because yeah, that is right, that everywhere the spirit is God only in my and somebody else, even if it is a dog. But I cannot treat the other one as a god, because for me, he's the Almighty.
Yes, we must not. In fact, no human, even after the recognition that they are that Nirguna Brahman, because that egoic nature, egoic tendency still remains. So no human should ever proclaim any godliness for themselves. All godliness should be claimed or left for God alone. So that is absolutely right. But I was saying in terms of the coming to the darshan or the jnana of the Atma. So Atma darshan or Atma jnana. You have a sense of that?
No.
Do you feel like what the sages have told us, and you read a lot of scripture and things, which is beautiful. So about the presence of the Atma within, something resonates as true there?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
So if I was to tell you, and I've been belaboring this point before you came to everyone, so I'll just share in a simple way with you that the way to truly come to a darshan of God is through the presence of the Atma within. That is why the Atma is also called the Sadguru presence. It is the only real teacher, the only real Guru, and all other expressions of teachers, of Gurus, are just instruments of that holy Atma within ourselves. Now, whether we call that Atma, or we call that Holy Spirit, or we call that Vaheguru, or we call that Sadguru, the words don't really matter. What is important is to come to a darshan of that. You see, and there is no difference between Atma darshan and Atma Gyan. It's the same thing. So, but what I've been telling everyone, and I'm telling you as well, that it is very important to meet God in this life, in this living existence that we call life. And our life is not truly life unless we come to that darshan of God. And for that we must endeavor to come to the darshan of the Atma within ourselves, because in that light we can even recognize the Nirguna reality of God as Nirguna Brahman. So it may be something too strong to hear in the first satsang that you're coming, but I want to almost plead with you, almost provoke you, plead with you, whatever it takes to get you to make this very, very important in your life, to come to the darshan of the Atma within. Because then in the light of the Atma, you recognize for yourself the reality of Narayan, of Ramji, of Krishnaji. In a while we'll be reading from the Ramcharitmanas as well. So, but my full invitation, my full prodding provocation is for us, all of us, no matter what age we are in, to really make it a primary focus, if possible, to come to the darshan of God. You see? So, just like if someone told you that Lord Krishna is sitting in the library section over there, you see, and you must meet him, what is the kind of, what can stop you then from meeting him? Nothing, isn't it? Nothing can get you in the way. And I am telling you that more than him sitting in front of you, he is sitting in your heart. You see? And we must find him. Let nothing come in the way to stop you. Maya will pull all its tricks, all it has at its disposal, especially once you make that a project of your life. You see, it'll find all kinds of things to distract you away from God. But you must find it, the strength within yourself to not get distracted and to make it the most important thing in your life. And then you see that once you coming to true insight about Him, you see, your primary thing in life, you will see that all this Maya Leela will take care of itself. So that is my main invitation to everyone who comes to Satsang. And I also want to reassure you and tell you that if it can happen for a foolish, stupid one like this one here, then all of you kids are much more sincere, much more devotional, and it's very much a possibility because the mind will come and fight with you and say, but it's easier said than done. ऐसी थोड़ी हो जाता है, you have to do tapas in the caves for thousands of years or something like that. And that is why maybe God has decided to use the most foolish one as an instrument to say कि इसके लिए हो सकता है तो वो सबके लिए हो सकता है. So you must never let doubt stop you from meeting God or endeavoring to meet God. That's what we are trying to do in Satsang.